Welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, I am Tamara Cherry, filling in for Evan Bray for the rest of the week and maybe a couple days next week as well. And we are talking cybersecurity because what the heck is up with this world we're living in? First, we were told to watch out for phishing scams with a PH, phishing, those fake emails that we get from purporting to be from eBay or our financial institution or what have you. Now, we got to worry about deep fakes. We got to worry about artificial intelligence, our use of generative AI. And your head might be spinning right now. But my next guest is here to, I don't know if you're going to ease our concerns, Greg, but you might heighten our concerns, but at least you're going to equip us with some tips to deal with it, right?
Oh, I hope so. I mean, I always tell folks that I'm paid to be paranoid, so I hope I don't really transfer my paranoia to you.
Oh, I love that. Paid to be paranoid. You can be paranoid so we don't have to be. All right, so that's the voice of Greg Schaffer. Greg is the owner and founder of vCISO Services down in the United States and author of Information Security for Small and Midsized Businesses. He's a cybersecurity expert. And Greg, you've been generous enough to allow people to call in with questions for you if they have them. So if you have a cybersecurity question, you can give us a call at 1-877-332-8255. I'll also keep a line on the text board. But Greg, can you just start out by walking us through, what is the world we're living in right now when it comes to cybersecurity? And I'm not talking about grocery stores being hacked or airlines being hacked or anything like that. I'm talking about the average person. What kind of things do we need to be keeping an eye out for when it comes to cybersecurity crimes that we as individuals are at risk of falling prey to?
It's interesting to have seen how the whole cybersecurity field has evolved over the years. Because if you spin back, I've been doing this IT and information security stuff for 35 years, and back when I first started, there was none of these concerns because really the internet was just very small and not really commercialized. So it's been interesting to see the growth as the years have progressed. And usually the growth is something like this. There's a service that is introduced, and then there are ways to use that service, and then the criminals find a way to exploit that service. And then there are pieces of advice that are given on how to avoid that and tools that are put in place, and then that risk kind of goes away, and then you wash, rinse, and repeat. So we've had many different exploits over the years, and you mentioned one at the beginning of the segment that still is a very, very big issue because it works, and it works very well, and that's phishing. And that is, as you mentioned, when the criminals will try to get something out of you by sending you an email and getting you to click on it. It's been very basic. Most Internet users are pretty savvy about the basic ones right now, that if you get a phishing email, we always used to say look for the bad spelling errors or bad grammar or just stuff that doesn't make sense. But they've gotten very good with it over the years. They've gotten a lot better with making the phishing email look more realistic. And so the importance of definitely looking into the email and verifying it is important. If you didn't expect an email to come through, don't click on anything on it. Call the number that you know that you can reach either the organization or the person. Like, for example, if your boss tells you that they need for you to do something, a lot of times it involves gift cards and that sort of thing. Well, call your boss first because chances are they didn't send that email along. I think probably phishing is going to be one of those issues that's going to be around for quite some time. It certainly has staying power, and the reason why it works, it's just people are sucked into it, and it's just getting better.
And it's not just on emails anymore, right, Greg? I get text messages on at least a weekly basis saying, we need your financial information, click on this link, or call us back at this number.
Yeah, there are variations of phishing. So what you just described is what's called smishing.
What?
SMS
smishing?
Smishing.
Did we just discover a new word up here in Saskatchewan? I don't know how long you guys have been using it down in Tennessee, but I like it. Smishing. Okay, tell me more about smishing, Greg.
So smishing is exactly what you're saying. What you're seeing, where they're using text, which is SMS messaging. That's where the smish comes from. And they'll send you a text saying, again, like you have a package coming, or just something that doesn't seem right. And there's other variants of this as well too. So another word out there is vishing, and vishing is basically voice phishing, where they'll leave you a voice message and try to get you to do something.
So what would a typical vishing message sound like? Like, are we talking about like stuff like the grandparent scam, that sort of thing, or is this something completely different?
Well, the grandparent scam, it's kind of related, and we'll get to that when we talk a little bit more about AI as well too. But yes, that's part of it, where basically it's a call, and they're trying to get you to do something via voice. So whether it be imitating your family member, or trying to imitate a person at a company or something like that, or even them saying that they're a representative of, name your favorite company, and trying to get you to get a bonus gift card or something along those lines. So that's vishing, and so you have to, again, but they all come down to the very basic idea. Well, if I didn't request it, why am I getting it? Mm-hmm. And then the last one that came to mind is something called whaling. Now, whaling is also associated with what's called spear phishing, and both of those are more or less targeted phishing. And usually, like, whaling indicates a larger fish, so whaling actually is not so much among people as much as it is regular consumers, as much as it is among like executives and all of that. But spear phishing is more general targeted. So if they know that, say, you have a particular role in a company, and they're trying to get into your company where you work, then they might target this phishing or smishing or vishing towards you. They're spearing you. They're targeting you. That's where the spear comes in order for you to do something so that they can get access to your company.
We're talking about something very seriously here, but I have a hard time keeping a straight face when I'm saying phishing, vishing, smishing, and whaling. Greg, I got to say, Greg Schaffer is on the line with me. He is a cybersecurity expert and author of Information Security for Small and Midsized Businesses. And Greg, I want you to just hold on for a couple minutes if you can, because after the break, I want to ask you about something you just alluded to regarding AI and the role that AI can play in all these ishings and so many other things that we need to be watching out for. So I'm gonna put that question to you coming up after the break here on the Evan Bray Show. I am Tamara Cherry, in for Evan on 980 CGME and 650 CKOM. Oh, and is there ever not a shortage of smooth criminals online these days? There are so many things for us to watch out for. Before the break, if you're just joining me, I'm Tamara Cherry, in for Evan, and I'm speaking with cybersecurity expert Greg Schaffer. And Greg, you were breaking down all the ishings, the phishing, the smishing, the vishing, and the whaling. Couldn't that have been a wishing? I get it. I get why it's whale. But now I want to talk to you about generative AI, because you had alluded to some of the risks that we might be putting ourselves at when it comes to generative AI. But something that you pointed out when we were chatting offline was using things like ChatGPT. What should people be aware of when they're using ChatGPT, and how the information they're inputting might be used?
ChatGPT and similar types of generative AI, they're just wonderful tools. But like every tool, you need to understand how to use it properly, otherwise it can hurt you. And the way that these work, just from a very high level, is that whatever you put in becomes part of the big ecosystem of that generative AI platform for then later putting out answers. And so, for example, let's just say that you put in your resume, or your information for your resume. You want ChatGPT to build a resume based on your information, or some generative AI platform. and you've got some personal information there that you might not necessarily want to go out to the world. You've got your address, your email address, maybe your phone number, some other items in there. Well, you get back from the generative AI platform a really great resume, and this is, hey, great, I'm going to use this, I'm going to find a job, everything's great. Except for that, now all of your information is now part of the ecosystem for ChatGPT. And what do I mean by that? Well, if somebody else then is putting in a query that could be related to your information in some way, shape, or form, your information then now could be presented as part of the answer to that other person's query. In other words, stuff you put in may be then offered as responses later on. And that's hugely bad because it's like, I mean, you've now lost control of like your information.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about people putting into ChatGPT, what's Greg Schaffer's mailing address, and that could potentially come up if you've uploaded your resume, if people still put their mailing addresses on their resumes.
Well, I mean, that's just a kind of a simple example of that, but it can get to be very bad for companies as well too, and not only for people if you put in your account numbers. And in one particular case, there was last year a company that a software engineer put in some code that they were writing, some computer code, and they wanted verification on, hey, does this code do what I want it to do, or how can you fix it? And ChatGPT came back with some recommendations, and the code was fine, everything was great, except for that code contained intellectual property or confidential information for the business, and that then became available to other folks doing other queries where someone else was making a similar query about a similar type of code. ChatGPT comes back with, hey, here's an example, and then suddenly there's this information in there because, they say artificial intelligence, but it's really this really, really, really sophisticated way of regurgitating information that came into it beforehand. There's nothing magical to it. It's just whatever comes in can come out.
Interesting. Okay, so I want to talk to you for a minute about deep fakes. And if you're just joining us, I'm Tamara Cherry, in for Evan Bray. I'm speaking with cybersecurity expert Greg Schaffer. When we're talking about deep fakes, Greg, like we're talking about images that are generated by AI, people that are talking that look like they're real people, but they're actually, video images that have been generated or voice sounds that have been generated by AI. How good are deep fakes these days, Greg, and how hard is it to spot them and keep ourselves safe from, maybe somebody trying to defraud us because we think we're talking to somebody, but we're actually talking to an artificial intelligence?
Oh, it's scary how good that they've become. I'm sure that a lot of folks have seen online like some examples of it, and no, this is really not Morgan Freeman saying this and those sorts of things. But it can get to be beyond the interesting. Like you can deep fake. We talked a little bit before about the grandparent issue. It's like instead of now a phone call of a loved one that's in danger, it can actually be a video. And you might think, well, you're going to recognize someone that's not them. Well, there was an instance earlier this year where several executives were in a video conference, and during the course of this video conference, they agreed that they needed to send something along the lines of $25 million to this one organization for some valid business purpose. And so the person who was responsible for sending, who could do that transaction, they got the agreement from the other five in there. All six agreed, okay, we need to do this great business deal opportunity. Except the other ones that were in there were deep fakes. They weren't the colleagues of this one person. So the $25 million went to criminals, and yet this is somebody who worked with these folks for quite some time, but they were fooled.
Wow. So what should we be doing? We just got a couple minutes left here, Greg, but what can we do to protect ourselves then? If it's that good, should we be having code words? Should we just not be doing these interactions on these sorts of business deals online?
Well, code word is definitely going to be one of them. We talked the multi-factor authentication that you can do. It's like before you get into a meeting, make sure everybody is coming in using MFA. Sometimes you just get into a video conference, you have a link and it's sent to you. Well, maybe, particularly if you're talking about a high-risk call like that, you'd want to have some sort of authentication. Really, with all of these types of scams, you just want to be more aware, and you want to take the extra step to verify and not just take it face value, no pun intended.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Fascinating stuff. And speaking of multi-factor identification fatigue, we've got just less than a minute here left, Greg, but what should people be watching out for? Because we think that this is a good thing, doing all this, two-step verification stuff, but this can actually be weaponized against us, right?
Right. If you start getting multi-factor authentication requests on your phone, whether it be enter in a code or just press yes to log in, and you didn't initiate it, don't click on it. That's a way that the scammers are trying to get into your account.
Right. They're playing off our multi-factor identification fatigue. All right. Greg Schaffer, cybersecurity expert, author of Information Security for Small and Midsized Businesses, also the owner and founder of vCISO Services, LLC, calling in from the United States today. Thank you, Greg, for all of your tips. I definitely learned stuff here. And, geez, that generative AI, the deep fakes, the stuff freaks me out. But thank you, Greg. Coming up after the break here on the Evan Bray Show, we're going to be talking science and how our smell affects our brains and how hearing loss may have a role to play in whether we develop dementia. That's coming up after the break here on 980 CGME and 650 CKOM.